Hey friends. Welcome to 12,000 BCE. Congratulations, you are now a member of Homo sapiens sapiens, which is Latin for hairy biped who screams at lightning and dies of diarrhea. You belong to a loosely defined band of Paleolithic hunter-gatherers. There is no calendar, no bedtime, and certainly no concept of morning routine. There is only cold, hunger, and the ever-present threat that something with more teeth is also awake. You wake up before dawn because you're cold. Not chilly, cold. The kind of cold that finds its way between every vertebra and whispers, you were never meant to survive this. Your shelter is a dome of mammoth bones and hides, cleverly engineered to leak exactly at the spot where you sleep. There is no mattress. Just pine needles, lice, and the residual heat of whatever body happened to pass out next to you last night, mother, cousin, maybe a dying dog. Privacy is not a concept, it's a delusion, like gods or full stomachs. The air smells like smoke, urine, and wet fur. Every breath you take scratches against your throat like fire ash. You pull your tattered hide closer, but it's stiff with old blood and last week's vomit. It was once an aurochs, now it's a blanket, a shroud, and a living habitat for parasites. You hear the wind whistle through the trees like the ghost of every ancestor who froze to death with regrets. It rattles the shelter's entrance flap, stitched together from sinew and hope. You try to sleep again, but your bladder objects loudly. Getting up is an act of bravery or stupidity. Your joints creak like snapped branches, your feet land in a puddle of something suspicious, and you half crawl toward the exit. Outside, the pre-dawn forest is not peaceful, it's waiting. Owls scream from the treetops. Something crunches in the underbrush. You piss while squatting in the dark, scanning for yellow eyes. Predators are real. You are not the apex. The apex has claws, breathes through fangs, and thinks you taste like slow-moving bacon. Back inside, someone is already poking the fire. His name might be Ua. Or just Grunt. No one's quite nailed down language yet. You know him as the guy with a broken nose and bad breath who insists on sleeping near the flames. The fire is almost out. That's a problem. Fire is not ambience. Fire is survival. Fire means cooked food, safety from beasts, light to keep madness at bay. Let it die, and you might as well bury yourself with it. Grunt stirs the embers with a stick blackened from years of service. He blows gently, whispering prayers to nothing. Sparks rise, the barest hope of warmth. You add dry moss, shaved bark, a few twigs from the communal pile. The fire coughs, catches lives. You feel something like relief. Or the absence of dread, which is as good as it gets. Another figure stirs. A child, maybe 6 winters old, her face smeared with soot, clutching a scrap of animal skin and a rock. She looks at you without expression. You remember she had a brother. He didn't make it through the last frost. No one mentions him. His bones were used to patch the roof. Someone coughs behind you, deep and wet. Probably old Nara. She hasn't left the shelter in days. She's either dying or evolving into something post-human. No one's sure. You glance at the fire again. Still burning. Good. You'll need it. For the morning ritual, checking traps, boiling bark water, praying your fingers don't fall off from frostbite. Outside, the blackness is softening. Not light, just less dark. Birds start screaming. Insects buzz angrily in hidden pockets of the earth. The wind carries the scent of damp leaves, rot, and predator musk. Somewhere, a wolf howls. You feel it in your chest cavity. Your stomach growls like it's about to file a grievance with the gods. But first, you must survive this hour, the hour before dawn, when even the stars seem too tired to care. The coldest, cruelest slice of the day. When no one knows if they'll live long enough to see the sun. You tend the fire. You clutch your hide. You wait. Welcome to morning. You're not dead yet. You have never owned anything. No coin, no calendar, no carved stone to claim as a legacy. But you do have fire. Or rather, you have the memory of fire, because this morning, like a joke told by the gods too many times, it's gone out again. The embers are dead. No glow. No whisper of heat. Just a shallow bed of grey ash where yesterday's warmth once lived, like the corpse of a friend who was too weak to scream. This isn't just inconvenient. It's a crisis. You are Homo sapiens sapiens, sure, but only so long as your species' one advantage, fire, remains lit. Without it, you are naked, blind, and on the menu. You stare at the ash like it might spontaneously relight out of pity. It doesn't. Fire has no pity. That was your mistake, assuming it ever loved you. Reigniting it is a ritual you know by repetition, not comprehension. There are no matches. No flint and steel if you've lost yours or it's been traded for something more edible, like a dead squirrel. If you're lucky, someone in the band still has an ember in a dun-wrapped pouch, smoldering all night, hugged to a bare chest like a sick baby. But you're not lucky today. Grunt is asleep, mouth open, drooling on a piece of rabbit hide. The others are curled around each other like human knots, wrapped in the same smoke-saturated furs they were born into. No one guards the fire anymore. That was last winter's lesson, and half of them didn't survive it. You begin the process. First, the tinder. Dried moss, thistle fluff, shaved bark, whatever hasn't been soaked by last night's drizzle. It feels like handling the breath of ghosts. Then you reach for the bow drill. It's a stick, a string, a notch in softwood, and a prayer. You wrap the string around the spindle, grip the top stone, and begin to saw. Back and forth. Back and forth. A rhythm of desperation. The friction begins to smoke. Your hands cramp. Your knees scream. You taste sweat and failure. The others pretend not to watch. If you fail, they get to blame you. If you succeed, they get to eat. The smoke thickens. A coal forms. You hiss like an animal and drop it into your bundle of tinder. You blow gently, like coaxing warmth from a dying god. The bundle ignites, not like a hero's torch, but like a whimper. You feed it dry twigs like bribes, then larger sticks. The flame accepts them with all the grace of a hungover predator. It flares. It lives. And for one trembling moment, so do you. Fire is not just heat. It is power. It cooks your meat, scares away wolves, and sterilizes the knives that carved open your cousin's infected leg last week. It smokes out bugs, boils water, and turns cold death into warm stew. But it's also a tyrant. It needs tending, feeding, flattering. Let it go hungry, and it turns to smoke and spite. The elders say fire was stolen from the gods. They also say that's why you bleed every month or get eaten by bears. Their theories are inconsistent, but so is life. You remember the time the fire went out in winter. 3 of you hiked for 2 days to the nearest group. You brought beads and animal teeth to trade. You returned with flame in a hollowed-out tortoise shell, the embers led in moss and dung, sweating with every step. If you tripped in the river, that was it, no fire, no future. But you didn't trip. You only nearly died of hypothermia and frostbite. And that was considered a success. Now that the fire is alive, people begin to stir. Not with joy, but with that expressionless grunt of those who expect disappointment and receive only mild delay. They shuffle forward, palms out, faces grey. In the flickering light, one by one, they squat near the flame as if it will forgive them for letting it die. It doesn't. But it offers them warmth anyway. You get no thanks. No recognition. Just smoke in your eyes and the faint aroma of whatever died nearby and might still be edible. You prod the fire with a stick. It pops. You add more fuel, old branches, bones from yesterday's kill, a scrap of twisted root that might smell good if you had the luxury of scent memory. For now, it just smells like survival. In this moment, around this resurrected pyre, you are not just a freezing ape with bad posture and lice in your eyebrows. You are Prometheus with calluses. A god of coals. A master of the one thing that keeps the long teeth and longer nights at bay. Until tomorrow, when it dies again, and you'll be forced to prove yourself again. But for now, the fire lives. And that means so do you. The fire is breathing now, which means so must you. It's not a poetic breath, not the kind written into epics or carved into cave walls. It's a shallow, phlegmy gasp through cracked lips, nostrils clotted with smoke residue, and a mouth that tastes like bark, bile, and something you hope was last night's squirrel. Your body is a stiff, fungal collection of joints and regrets, draped in the same lice-infested hide you fell asleep in. There are no sheets to toss, no pajamas to change, just a shift in posture that signals your willingness to re-enter the daily gladiatorial match against existence. As you sit upright, slowly, with the grace of a wounded elk, your spine audibly resents you. You're probably 25, which in the Upper Paleolithic is roughly equivalent to modern hospice care. Every joint cracks like dry twigs, every stretch invites a new and surprising pain. Congratulations! You're not dead. Before we proceed, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Thanks for being here, let's get started. Just increasingly skeletal. You need to piss. There's no chamber pot, no outhouse, no polite euphemism like taking a moment. There is only a shamefaced shuffle into the woods, past the line of wet footprints and scavenged trash, to a place where hopefully no predator has decided to do its own morning business. The ground is cold. The bark stabs. You crouch like a frog and pray for privacy, but you are never truly alone. Your ancestors watch. The trees whisper. A vole skitters past your foot and you nearly void your soul instead. When it's done, you wipe with a mossy rock and flick it into the undergrowth like it wronged you personally. Hygiene is not part of this routine. Just damage control. You return to camp, hands still crusted from last week's deer intestine, and everyone pretends not to notice. Because if they judged you, they'd have to admit they are worse. Next, hydration. Water is not served. It is foraged. You crawl toward a stream that could be a sanctuary or a death sentence. There's no guarantee it's safe. Upstream, a decaying bull might be steeping its plague-riddled innards into your breakfast. But you drink anyway, face pressed into the mud, slurping like a pig, because thirst is stronger than common sense. The dew on leaves is your backup plan. You lap it up like a cursed deer, lips grazing foliage slick with spider piss and bird residue. Still, it's wet. And that's as close to clean as you're going to get. The traps need checking. You set them yesterday, crude snares made from braided sinew and wishful thinking. Half are empty. One contains a rabbit, half dead. And screaming. The sound isn't cute. It's gut-churning. But you silence it quickly with a rock to the head, because mercy is a modern invention and you haven't the luxury to philosophize over breakfast. Blood seeps into your palm, warm and immediate. You tie the body to your waist and keep walking. Checking each snare with the hope of food and the dread of finding only footprints, yours, mocking you. Back at camp, others are stirring. Someone's child is crying, a sound that cuts sharper than a flint blade. Not from hunger, that's constant, but from the quiet horror of another day. You find a patch of ground that isn't piss-soaked or actively infested and squat beside the fire. You chew on a strip of dried meat, so old it might be mammoth. Or cousin. It's tough, tasteless, and full of grit. Probably dropped in the dirt and picked back up. Still better than nothing. You gnaw silently. No one speaks unless they have to. Language isn't for comfort yet. It's for warnings, commands. The occasional muttered threat. A woman beside you grunts and spits. Her face is painted with ochre, hair matted into cords. She scratches at a rash on her thigh and glares into the flames like she's considering murdering them. You nod. That's your morning greeting. Your own skin is no better, raw, lumpy, decorated with bug bites and something that may be a fungal bloom or just your body giving up. You scratch without shame. Everyone does. You are all crusted in the same layers of smoke, sweat, and regret. There is no grooming routine. There is only maintenance. You pick a beetle out of your scalp, crush it, and flick it into the fire. It pops like a warning shot. Someone starts humming. Not a song, those haven't evolved yet. Just a rhythmic noise, guttural and low, that calms the children and pretends to ward off spirits. It doesn't work. Nothing does. But it's better than silence. Silence is when the forest moves, when predators edge closer, when rival bands decide it's a good day to steal meat or mates or both. So you make noise. You live loud. You scratch, cough, spit, and fart into the void, and hope the void doesn't answer back with claws. And that is your morning ritual. No bath. No prayer. No gratefulness journal. Just a procession of bodily function, existential dread, and the constant, gnawing need to stay alive. You have completed the sacred rites of the early Paleolithic. Human. You are now officially ready to begin the real suffering. Breakfast is over. Time to hunt. Hunger isn't a feeling anymore. It's a geography. You live in it now, a vast, echoing expanse behind your ribs where dreams go to die and your stomach folds in on itself like a defeated animal. The rabbit you found earlier was yesterday's dream. Today you forage. Forage, not because it's quaint or spiritual or connected to the earth, but because you are about 6 hours away from fainting into the dirt and becoming a footnote in someone else's hunt. You drag your aching limbs through the forest underbrush, accompanied by the low rumble of your guts and the soft swish of your prehistoric shamecloth. There is no pantry. No wild food app. Just trial, error, and the faint memory of which plants killed your aunt last spring. You begin with berries. They look tempting, these juicy clusters hanging from thorny branches like nature's apology, but you know better. Red is not always dead, but it is suspicious. Blue might be safe, or it might liquefy your bowels. You pluck a handful and roll them between your fingers, sniffing them like a sommelier with brain damage. One goes into your mouth. You wait. No throat swelling. No immediate seizure. Congratulations. Breakfast is a gamble you just survived. You eat the rest, knowing full well they might ferment into stomach rot before noon. It's not a question of if you'll suffer, it's when. Roots come next. You dig with a stick sharpened into a wedge. Your hands are too raw, your nails too blackened, your will too diminished to argue. The earth is hard and stingy, like every god you've ever heard whispered about. You find something bulbous, grey, and gnarled. It looks edible in the same way mold looks decorative. You bite. It crunches like wet cartilage and tastes like dirt's pessimistic cousin. You chew anyway. Texture is not a priority. Your ancestors have passed down nothing but the knowledge that if it doesn't kill you immediately, it counts. Insects are protein. You know this because you've seen older members of your band lift bark and grin at the writhing smorgasbord beneath. You're not grinning. But you are hungry. You peel back a rotting log and stare at a colony of beetles, their shiny exoskeletons glistening like ancient armor. One quick grab, a crunch, and you've earned your first calorie of the day. You gag. You chew. You gag again. It's fine. Everyone gags. You eat 5 more. One has eggs inside. You swallow them too. Congratulations, you're now a mobile protein farm. You remember the time someone ate a mushroom they thought looked like the one the healer approved. They were wrong. That someone spent the next day screaming at tree bark and bleeding from places that shouldn't bleed. The healer nodded sagely and declared it a lesson from the spirits. Then she made tea from the same mushroom and muttered about dosing correctly. You no longer trust mushrooms. They are either dinner or death, with no in between. Nuts are a luxury, assuming you can find any that haven't already been claimed by squirrels, birds, or insects with more foresight than your entire species. You crack one open between 2 stones and find the meat inside shriveled and bitter. You eat it anyway. Because hope, like taste, is no longer a factor. You move through the woods like a scavenging ghost, following trails, paw prints, and the vague memory of where the tubers grow in late spring. This isn't a nature walk. This is a gauntlet with teeth. Your feet are blistered, your breath short. And every rustle in the underbrush makes your heart stutter with the possibility of predator, or worse, rival humans. Rival bands do not negotiate. They do not share. If they find you in their foraging zone, you become forage. You tread quietly now, ears twitching like prey, scanning for signs of two-legged danger. A snapped twig. A whiff of body odor that isn't yours. A footprint shaped like yours but wider. You duck. Wait. The forest holds its breath. Then nothing. You move again. Slower now. Lower. You spot a patch of edible greens, nettles, maybe. They sting, but they don't kill, which makes them top-tier cuisine. You wrap your hands in bark scrap, rip them free, and stuff them into your sack. You'll boil them later, assuming the water hasn't been cursed by last night's frog orgy. You chew a few raw. They taste like iron and regret, but your stomach groans with the joy of not eating itself. And just like that, your morning forage is done. You haven't found much. A handful of berries. Some angry grains. 6 beetles and a handful of questionable seeds. But in this world, that's called success. You limp back to camp, sack in hand, jaw sore from grinding bark and chitin. You are not full. You are not satisfied. You are just less empty. And that's the closest you'll get to victory today. You don't hunt because it's thrilling. You hunt because you're out of beetles and your intestines are folding themselves into knots of protest. Hunting is not a sport. It is a gamble. Where the buy-in is exhaustion and the payout is a few sinewy bites of sinew if you're lucky and cannibalistic despair if you're not. The band selects you this morning not because you're strong or skilled, but because you're not limping. And haven't recently bled out of any obvious holes. That makes you fit. That makes you bait. You take your place beside 2 others, a man with a lazy eye and a limp, and a woman who once brought down a boar by sheer accident. None of you are experts. There is no such thing. Just varying degrees of failure. Your weapons are stone-tipped spears, carved with jagged edges and optimism. The shafts are crooked. The bindings are frayed. You clutch yours like it owes you money. Bows exist, technically, but the sinew strings snap in rain and the arrows drift like drunken mosquitoes. Throwing sticks, weighted clubs, nets woven from twisted bark, they all serve, if barely. You smear your face with mud to dull your scent, though what you really need is divine intervention and a meal that doesn't fight back. The group splits. You head into the woods. There are no trail markers, just instinct and the faint memory of tracks you glimpsed yesterday, deep gouges in the mud from a deer's panicked sprint. You hope it's still nearby. You hope it's alone. You hope your legs don't betray you halfway through the chase. You move quietly, each footstep a calculated gamble. Leaves crunch. Twigs snap. Every noise is a confession to the forest, you are here, and you are hungry. Squirrels jeer from branches. Birds scream overhead. Your prey, whatever it is, knows you're coming long before you spot it. You crouch, eyes scanning for any sign, fresh dung, broken branches, the faint musk of ungulate panic. And then, tracks. Not fresh, but not ancient. Hoofprints press deep into the mud, weaving toward a distant thicket. You follow, blood humming. Your stomach forgets to growl. Even it knows silence is your only ally now. The deer appears like a hallucination, brown, twitching, beautiful in that edible kind of way. You freeze. It is maybe 40 paces ahead. Chewing something far tastier than your best hope. Your heart thunders. Your hand tightens on the spear. You've done this before. You've also failed this before. The woman beside you raises her throwing stick. The lazy-eyed man mutters something that might be encouragement or a sneeze. On a whispered count, one you barely understand, you rush. The deer bolts. You run. It's faster, obviously. Stronger, certainly. But you have one advantage, persistence. The cruel, glorious human trait of refusing to give up long after biology says you should lie down and rot. You run until your lungs burn, until your soles bleed against sharp stones, until the taste of blood creeps into your mouth. You chase it through bramble, over fallen logs, through streams. The others flank wide, shouting to spook it into your path. The deer, magnificent and furious, begins to falter, not from fear, but from heat. You can sweat. It cannot. That is the only reason you exist at all. Eventually, it stumbles. You do not cheer. You close in. The lazy-eyed man throws a spear that sails wide and buries itself in a bush. The woman screams and charges. You hesitate. Then follow. The deer kicks. It tries to rise. You stab, not elegantly, not cleanly, but desperately. The spear enters muscle, finds something vital, and the creature collapses with a sound like wet surrender. It doesn't die instantly. You do not have that mercy to give. You hack, pant, cry a little, maybe from guilt, maybe from exertion. Finally, the deer stops moving. Silence follows. The forest resets. Birds return. The woman sits heavily on a rock and retches. The man retrieves his useless spear and pretends he helped. You don't speak. The body lies in front of you, steaming in the morning chill, a miracle and a monument to your unwillingness to die. You begin the gutting process because time is now against you. Flies will arrive. Scavengers. Maybe even other humans, and they are the worst of all. You cut with stone, sawing through skin, muscle, membrane. The stench is immediate, rich, cloying, offensive. You tear free the guts and throw them aside. The liver is good. The heart, better. You save what you can, wrap it in hide, and pray you make it back before something faster decides you look more convenient than the corpse. You do not celebrate. There is no triumphant music, no heroic pose. There is only the weight of the meat. The stickiness of blood on your arms and the understanding that this is not victory. It is merely delay. Tomorrow you hunt again. Or starve. Now comes the real work. The deer is dead, and for the briefest, most delusional second, that felt like success. But success has a weight, roughly 160 pounds of twitching muscle, warm blood, and future protein that now has to be dragged, lifted, or otherwise coaxed through miles of tangled forest like an uncooperative god. There are no carts. No pulleys. No wheels. Just you, your trembling limbs, and the awkward embrace of dead weight. You don't celebrate the kill. You grab the carcass by the hind legs and begin to drag it over roots, through mud, and past swarms of insects. That can already smell opportunity. Every inch is a negotiation. The deer's limbs snag on underbrush, its head lolls sideways like it's mocking you, and its hooves gouge the earth in grotesque tribute. You pull anyway. Because every ounce of flesh you leave behind is a calorie. You'll never get back. The others help in the way Paleolithic teamwork usually works, grunts, occasional shoving, and no clear leadership. The lazy-eyed man ties a rope of twisted sinew around the neck and helps drag it like a reluctant sled. The woman lifts the rear and tries to avoid the splatter of half-congealed blood. You all stink like victory, which means you stink like death. The forest responds. Flies arrive in black clouds, ecstatic and orgiastic. Their larvae are already dreaming of your kill. The meat is still warm, and the scent of ruptured innards leaks into the air like a curse. You move faster. You are not alone out here. The blood trail is a dinner bell for every predator within scent range. Wolves. Wildcats. Other humans. They all know the rhythm of death and what it signals. You quicken your pace, slipping on moss-slick stones, scraping your shins against a bramble. The deer thumps behind you with the weight of inevitable decay. There is no elegance in this procession. Just exhaustion and the grim logistics of staying alive by lugging something that no longer is. You pause to rest and immediately regret it. Flies cover the carcass like living chainmail. A rank steam rises from the open belly. You wave your hands uselessly. Your breath comes in ragged sobs. The woman pours water over her face and mutters something half-spoken, half-snarled, maybe a prayer, maybe a threat. The man leans against a tree, sweat dripping from the tip of his nose, trying not to look at the deer's glassy eyes. You tear a strip of bark to rewrap the failing shoulder sling. Every movement feels like a betrayal of your spine. Then you hear the growl. Low. Distant. But unmistakable. Something's watching. Something with patience and claws and the confidence of something that's never once worried about starvation. You don't look back. You lift. You drag. You move. The path narrows, the sun hangs overhead like a bloated yellow witness, and your feet bleed into your hide wrappings. You wonder, for a moment, what would happen if you just left it behind. Let the forest reclaim it. Walk away and eat berries until your teeth fall out. But you know better. Meat is survival. Meat is social capital. You return without it, and you're not just a failure, you're a burden. You press forward. Eventually, you see smoke. Not the hopeful kind. The practical kind. Camp. The others spot you. A few children run up, stop short, and gape. They haven't seen meat this size in weeks. You drop the carcass like a curse. It lands with a wet slap, and the flies rise like spirits. Everyone converges. Elders come to poke. Women arrive to slice. Children crouch to watch. You step back, muscles quaking, hands numb. The deer is hoisted by its limbs onto a makeshift frame of branches and lashed rope. The skinning begins. Stone blades are passed. The hide is peeled like a curtain, and the smell intensifies: iron, feces, rot. This is not cooking. This is evisceration with ritual undertones. The organs are sorted. Liver, heart, kidneys, all saved. The intestines are coiled into a heap and scraped out with sticks. The hide is laid flat to dry, pegged with bone pins. Meat is sliced into long ribbons for drying. Blood pools in the dirt, dark and steaming. You watch, too tired to be hungry, too relieved to be proud. The weight of the kill is off your back but now hangs in your muscles like punishment. The meat will feed the band. For a day. Maybe two. Then the cycle begins again. Someone hands you a piece of raw liver. Warm, slippery, vaguely sweet. You chew it slowly, letting the irony taste flood your senses. This is payment. This is praise. This is proof you earned your calories. You eat. You breathe. You sit down next to the dead deer's skull and watch the steam rise from its nostrils. You're alive. For now. And that's more than most things in this forest get to say. The deer is dead, the blood is still warm, and now the real work begins, not just cutting, but cooking. Or at least, making the meat hot enough that the worms inside it die first. There is no salt, no firewood stacked in neat piles, no iron pots simmering with rosemary and thyme. There is a pit, a few blackened rocks, a lot of smoke, and people who have not tasted real meat in a week. The fire is already going, fed with damp wood and strips of dry grass. Smoke chokes the air. It wraps around you, seeps into your hair, your nose, your skin. It's not just for heat, it's for insects, for spirits, for keeping death a little farther away. The smoke is your seasoning now. The women take charge. Not because anyone said so. No one needs to. They always do. Their hands move fast, cutting the meat into thin strips with stone blades that wobble and chip with every stroke. Some meat is skewered on green sticks, held over the fire like sacrifice. Some goes straight to the smoke rack, simple branches tied together with gut, a frame over the fire where meat will hang for hours, maybe days, drying until it's tough enough to survive a journey or a famine. That is, if no one steals it. First, you chew a piece of liver someone shoved in your hand. It's raw, still warm, and tastes like blood, mud, and health. You don't spit it out. You swallow, because every bite is a gift you don't deserve. The others eat the same way. There is no waiting for a table. No blessing. Just crouched bodies with sticky fingers and teeth that know exactly how to tear and crush. Bones are cracked open with rocks to suck the marrow inside. It tastes like warm fat and dirt, but it fills you in a way that no root or berry ever could. For those who can't chew, too old, too young, too broken, the stomach is cleaned, inflated like a balloon, and used to boil meat. You fill it with water, drop in hot stones straight from the fire, and add chunks of organ meat and wild grains. The stones hiss, the water bubbles, and the smell rises, thick, rich, and almost good. Almost. The stomach swells and leaks. You patch it with mud and string. It works, kind of. You call it soup. Children run near the edge of the fire, grabbing scraps, licking grease from their fingers. One of them gnaws on a rib until the bone splinters. You don't stop them. No one does. This is how they learn. They learn to eat fast, chew hard, and keep one eye on the sky in case a bird of prey decides to steal their meal or their eyeball. There is no waiting your turn. There is only eating while it's hot and available. You hear the crack of a skull being split open. Someone wants the brains. Good. Brains are soft, fatty, useful. They will be mashed and rubbed into hides later to make them pliable. Maybe some will be eaten. Maybe someone will smear it on a wound. You're not sure if it helps, but it looks impressive. A chunk of meat slips into the fire. It doesn't stay there long. A hand reaches in, grabs it bare, hisses at the heat, and throws it onto a flat stone. The hair is burned off. The skin is crisp. That's good enough. You eat it. You don't ask where it came from. Could be leg, could be neck, could be something else. Doesn't matter. It's food. It's hot. You are not hungry anymore, and that's as close to heaven as your kind ever gets. Fat drips into the flames. It sizzles, spits back, makes everyone blink through the smoke. A baby starts to cry. Someone shushes it with a piece of warm meat. It stops crying. You don't question it. Everyone's quieter now, full or close to it. People lick fingers, wipe greasy hands on furs, and lean back. There is no talk of flavor. No complaints. You don't eat for joy. You eat to live. And right now, you are alive. Nearby, the bones are stacked. Some will be carved into tools. Some will be boiled for broth. None will be wasted. A woman takes a thigh bone and begins to smash it open with a stone. She works with rhythm, the beat of hunger, of habit. She passes the marrow to an elder with cracked lips and a missing tooth. He gums it with gratitude. The rest of the meat sizzles over the fire, dries above it, or rests in hide bundles for later. You lie down on the dirt, smoke in your eyes. Blood under your nails, belly not full but no longer crying. You close your eyes and smell the fire, the fat, the burning hair. It is, for now, the smell of life. You've eaten. You're warm. Your legs aren't shaking anymore. That doesn't mean you get to rest. This isn't a storybook where a successful hunt leads to feasting and laughter and songs by the fire. This is real life in 12,000 BCE, and in real life, a full stomach is just a signal that it's time to get back to work before something eats your accomplishments or you. The chores never end. Because chores here means the thin, fraying rope between you and death. You start with tools. The stone blades that cut the deer are already dull, chipped from bone and sinew. You squat with a handful of flint and work them sharp again, striking stone against stone with the patience of someone who knows that a blunt blade turns a rabbit into a missed opportunity and a wound into a fatal infection. Every edge matters. The sparks bite your fingers. The stone dust gets in your eyes. You keep going. Beside you, someone is mending a hide. It was once a blanket, then a baby wrap, now maybe it'll be a water pouch or a curtain for the wind hole in the shelter. She scrapes it with a bone tool until it stops smelling like corpse and starts resembling something pliable. It's soaked in urine and brain mush. That's how it softens. It stinks, but that's normal. Everything stinks. You do, she does. The ground does. Clean is not a concept. Clean is something rivers do to bones after people die. Further off, fish hang from a line stretched between two trees. Caught days ago, half-dried, still attracting flies. A boy fans the fish with a branch, not out of hope, but tradition. He's learning that life is spent trying to delay rot for one more day. His fingers are covered in old scales and his eyes are full of boredom. Good. That's a better lesson than anything a ritual could teach him. Someone else is scraping fat from an old carcass, the stiff white chunks being saved in a bark bowl to smear on wounds or melt into cooking pots. Fat is gold. It fuels the brain, soaks the skin, keeps the young from starving. It's disgusting and holy all at once. Nearby, a girl picks through a pile of bone needles, sorting the unbroken ones for repair work. She squints. Her fingers are red from frostbite or blood. Probably both. She uses the sharpest needle to stitch a hole in her foot wrapping, leather. Made from something that died 2 winters ago. Every stitch is slow. Every knot matters. Lose that wrapping, get a cut, get a fever, die. The chain of cause and effect is short and brutal. You remember when her older brother didn't fix his foot fast enough. He's part of the shelter now. His skull keeps the firewood from rolling away. Someone else is cleaning wounds. Not because they're a healer, but because they drew the short stick. The patient is a man with a gash down his thigh, a wound from falling during yesterday's tree climb to knock down a hornet nest for the larvae. The wound is red, swollen, smells like wet death. The woman cleans it with moss and chewed herbs, wraps it in a strip of rabbit hide, and mutters a half prayer to the ancestors. She knows it probably won't help. But pretending to help has its own survival value. The man nods like he believes. That's enough. Children whimper in the corner of the camp. Not because they are scared, though they should be, but because one of them has worms and the others have fleas. They scratch until they bleed. An older woman pours smoke over them from a bundle of burning leaves. She says it drives out spirits. It doesn't. It just makes the camp smell like a funeral. But she means well. You think. Maybe she just likes burning things. A boy is learning to chip stone. You hear the strikes, sharp, clumsy, hopeful. Every young one has to make their first blade, just like they have to learn to gut their first animal and bury their first friend. No one teaches with words. They just show. Or let you fail. Learning is a bruise that scabs over into wisdom, or a scar that says you tried and got lucky. There's no other way. Even when everything's done, it's not really done. You check the shelter, patching where the hide roof flaps in the wind, tying down the corners with rocks and rotting twine. You wipe out the ash pit, spread fresh dirt over where someone relieved themselves too close to camp, and toss bones into the waste pile where dogs, crows, and gods all scavenge equally. You glance at the fire. Still burning. That's good. You glance at the sky. Still bright. Still time to suffer before the dark brings back the fear. The chores never stop. They just change shape. The moment you stop working is the moment something notices you've gotten slow. And in this world, slow means gone. You were born into the dirt and you will likely die in it, so it makes sense that childhood here begins not with lullabies but with bruises. There is no age of innocence, only an age of smaller mistakes. You are not protected from pain, you are shaped by it. The children of your band, scab-kneed, wild-eyed, half-starved little echoes of the adults they will become, do not play so much as prepare. Their games are practice for things that kill. A boy throws rocks at birds, not because he enjoys it, but because one day the rock must land or his family won't eat. A girl stalks her younger brother through the underbrush, mimicking the movements of a predator, learning how to wait, how to strike, how to win. There are no toys unless you count the broken-off antler used as a club or the stick that's been chewed into the shape of a knife. Dolls do exist, rag-wrapped bundles of moss and feathers, but they are also used in ritual mock burials, so you can get used to saying goodbye. Cuts are constant. Scratches from thorns. Splinters from spears. Burns from getting too close to the fire while trying to steal meat. Every child has at least one infected finger, one scab on the forehead, one dark ring of snot around their nose. You learn by bleeding. Touch the wrong berry, vomit until you cry. Step too near the shelter's edge in the dark, fall, break something, scream until someone pulls you back or doesn't. Sometimes the screaming stops before anyone reaches you. That, too, is a lesson. They mimic the adults constantly. A child drags a dead frog behind a string of grass, calling it the hunt. Another squats beside the stream and chews on a stick, pretending to prepare soup. You've seen toddlers slap each other with sticks and call it a fight, mimicking arguments they've watched over meat or mates or mistakes. No one tells them to stop. Why would they? If they can't fight now, how will they survive later? Emotion is taught by example. Crying is fine if you're dying, not if you're cold. Laughing happens, but it sounds more like barking, sharp and fast, cut off before it attracts something worse. Discipline doesn't come from rules. It comes from outcomes. A child steals food and gets bitten, not by an adult, but by another child who wanted it more. Hierarchy is instinctive. Older kids hit younger ones. Younger ones learn to hide, hit back, or run. And they all know which adults will protect them and which will let them learn the hard way. You remember when that boy, the one with the burned hand, put it in the fire trying to cook his own meat. No one stopped him. They just watched. Now he uses the other hand more often. There's tenderness, but it's buried under ash and dirt and necessity. A mother will slap a child for crying, then pull them into her lap to pick lice from their scalp. A father might toss his son in the air, then teach him to get a rabbit while it's still twitching. A sibling might braid another's hair, then steal their beads while they sleep. Love is practical. Love is survival. You don't say, "I love you." You say, "I brought you food." You say, "Stay close." You say, "Don't die today." Some kids are already marked. You can tell who's going to make it: the girl who can run barefoot over thorns and never flinch, the boy who doesn't cry when he gets bit, the quiet one who listens more than he talks. Others, you know, won't last. Too soft. Too loud. Too slow. One of them disappeared last winter. Fell through ice, probably. No one went looking. His mother sat by the fire that night, silent. The next day, she helped skin a deer and never mentioned him again. Rituals come early. There's no formal age for adulthood. It comes when you've bled enough, starved enough, and stopped asking for help. Some bands cut the skin, paint the body, give you a name that sounds like weather or violence. Others don't bother. You become what you do. If you feed the group, you matter. If you don't, you're another mouth. You're weight. You're optional. So childhood is not protection. It is preparation. It is falling into a thorn bush and learning which scratches fester. It is boiling beetles because no one stopped you, and eating them because someone dared you, and learning which ones make your teeth itch. It is failing and hurting and doing it all again until you stop failing quite so often. And when the time comes to fight or flee or feed, the ones who survived all those scrapes will be the ones who don't hesitate. You call them women, but the truth is they are engineers of survival, botanists without books, walking encyclopedias of what not to eat unless you want your stomach to invert and leak through your ribs. They don't hunt with spears. They don't chase things with teeth. They chase roots, bulbs, and things that hide under leaves and in mud and behind your assumptions. While the men march off pretending they are the reason anyone eats, it's the gatherers who quietly keep the band from starving. This is their world, a world of digging sticks, cracked fingernails, silent calculations, and the ever-present risk of mistaking food for poison. They rise early, before the light gets hot, before the insects decide the forest is theirs alone. Each carries a basket woven from whatever fibers didn't snap first, strapped to their back with sinew or gut or nothing at all. Babies ride in slings across their hips, sleeping or suckling or staring wide-eyed at the world that wants them gone. There is no babysitter. The earth is both cradle and predator. The only safety is staying close to someone who knows the difference between edible and lethal. And these women do. They begin by reading the landscape, not with maps, but with memory and instinct. They know where the tubers grow fat from the last flood. They know which shrubs lie about their berries and which fungi only kill you slowly. They read moss like scripture. They test leaves between their teeth. They smell the dirt, feel the bark, notice when the birds stop singing. Every sense is tuned. Not to beauty. To threat. The digging stick is the main tool, a blunt-ended spear. For prying the stubborn secrets of the earth. They plunge it into soil with the precision of someone who's buried 2 children and knows which roots might save the third. With each pull, they expose a possibility, edible, maybe. Dangerous, probably. And yet they keep going. One false move, one bitter bulb mistaken for its harmless cousin, and the whole camp ends up bleeding from both ends. They forage in silence. Mostly. Talking scares animals. Talking also distracts. And this work demands attention. The berries must be inspected, not just for ripeness, but for mimicry, nature's cruelest joke. Some berries look delicious, taste fine, and kill you the next morning with a paralysis that begins in the toes. Those ones they smear onto arrows. Everything has a use. A woman spots mushrooms clinging to a fallen log. She gestures. The others gather around, squint, smell, break one open. They nod. These are the ones that don't make your dreams scream. They collect them carefully. Mushrooms aren't food. They are medicine. Or weapons. Or doors to other places. You don't just eat them. You negotiate. Some wade into the marsh for roots. They roll up hides, step into cold water, and vanish. Up to their knees in mud. They reach down blind, fingers searching for the knotted strands of cattails, water plants, soft tubers. It's slow, cold work. Leeches are expected. Snakes are possible. But the roots are filling. The roots are life. So they keep pulling. Some climb hillsides for grains. Some dig in forest shade for truffles, though they don't call them that. They call them the ones that smell like wet dog but don't make you vomit. They chew on leaves as they go, test samples, spit when it burns. Everything is tested, again and again. Not by science. By memory. By scars. By stories of who didn't make it. The baskets fill slowly. Berries, greens, bulbs, mushrooms, seeds, beetles, protein, even if it twitches. They carry it all on their backs, through thorns and heat and silence. Children help when they can, or at least learn not to wander. One girl finds a plant her mother once warned her about. She picks it anyway. Her fingers swell. Her tongue tingles. She doesn't tell anyone, but they'll know soon enough. Next time, she'll remember better. That's how the knowledge lives, through pain, not praise. They return by dusk, sweaty, bitten, scratched, and burdened with survival. The men glance up from the fire, maybe nod, maybe don't. The women empty their baskets. The camp eats. No one asks where the food came from. No one calls them heroes. But without them, the bones on the fire wouldn't have meat. The sick wouldn't have medicine. The children wouldn't have a second day. They don't hunt. They gather. And they remember. Which is why everyone else gets to forget. Your clothing is not stitched, styled, or scented. It is scraped, smoked. And still slightly alive. It comes from something that died recently, something with enough hide to cut and stretch and dry without falling apart midwinter. Your shirt is a patchwork of rabbit pelts held together with sinew and spit. Your leggings are deerskin, tough, water-resistant, and stiff until you beat them with a rock for half an hour. Your boots, if you're lucky enough to have them, are stuffed with dry moss to soak up the sweat and the guilt. There's no tailoring. There's no comfort. The goal is simple, keep the bugs out and the warmth in. Everything beyond that is wishful thinking. To make these clothes, someone had to scrape the flesh off the inside of the skin with a sharp rock until their arms gave out. Then the hide was soaked in a mixture of piss, brain matter, and cold water until it reeked less of corpse and more of functional rot. Then it was smoked, hung over a fire so the fibers would tighten and resist mildew. The smoke gives the leather that signature color, that rich brown hue, and that unmistakable stench of "I've been rolling in your ancestors." If it rains, your clothes get heavier. If it's dry, they get stiff. Either way, they don't fit. They cling in the wrong places and split in the wrong seasons. But they keep you alive, and that's their only job. Underneath the hide, your skin tells its own story. It's cracked, dirty, and painted in a thin film of grease from whatever animal you gutted last. You haven't bathed in days. Or weeks. Or possibly since your last near-death experience in the river. Cleanliness is a luxury you don't understand. Water is for drinking, not washing. And if you smell bad, good, it keeps the flies confused and the predators cautious. Your skin itches constantly. Not from dryness, but from lice, fleas, mites, and whatever else has decided to make your body its home. You pick at scabs like they owe you something. You scratch until you bleed. Everyone does. It's communal grooming without the luxury of affection. Sometimes you smoke bathe. Not because it feels good, because it doesn't, but because the elders say it keeps the spirits from entering your ears at night. You crouch in a low tent made of animal hide, with a smoldering pile of wet leaves and herbs beneath. The smoke chokes you. Your eyes stream. Your skin weeps sweat and grime. You emerge not clean, but smoked. Preserved. Less appetizing to insects. Slightly more acceptable to your bandmates. The smell will cling to you for days, wrapping around your body. Like a second skin. Hair is a mixed blessing. It keeps your head warm. It also keeps lice warm. Some people let it grow wild, matted into cords and knots that pick up leaves, grease, and stories. Others shear it off with obsidian blades, not for vanity, but because short hair doesn't host colonies. Beards are optional. No one respects you more for having one, but it does make you look older, which can be a survival advantage if people think you know things. Body paint is common. Not for war or beauty, but for identification. You smear ochre across your face to say, I belong here. You draw charcoal lines on your arms to say, this is my kin. Some marks are decorative. Others are protective, meant to ward off sickness, or invite fertility, or confuse whatever spirits are currently punishing your bowels. Scars are status. A jagged one across the thigh says you survived a bore. A cluster of small burns on the wrist says you passed a test. Children are marked young, not always intentionally. A fall into the fire. A scratch from a thorn. A bite from a cousin during a food fight. The body remembers what the brain wants to forget. No one judges. Everyone matches. You know someone who tattooed a spiral on their chest with ash and bone needles. They say it helps them find their way home. You don't ask if it works. You just hope they keep coming back with food. So you wear your clothes like armor, your grease like perfume, your lice like jewelry. You do not look good. You look used. Like a tool passed down through generations, worn smooth and reliable. And that's the point. You're not here to be admired. You're here to keep your skin on your bones out of the cold, and your body out of the grave. If the others don't gag when you sit beside them, you're clean enough. There is no inside. There is no shelter from the sky, only a half-collapsed linter stitched together with bones, bark, and a prayer you forgot how to say. The roof leaks. The walls creak. The floor is the earth itself, uneven, cold, and occasionally alive. You don't live under a roof. You live under the sky, and the sky, in turn, lives under no rules. When it rains, it doesn't drizzle, it invades. When the wind comes, it howls like it's grieving something you haven't lost yet. And when the sun rises, it does not warm, it punishes. It boils. It finds every exposed inch of skin and slowly reminds you that your body is meat. You are not a person. You are something being cured by solar heat and bug saliva. Your feet are the first to go. They are bare, always, unless you're lucky enough to have hide wrappings that haven't rotted yet. Even then, moisture seeps in. In summer, the ground burns. In winter, it bites. In between, it just harbors invisible microbes waiting for your skin to split. You walk anyway. There's no choice. But every step is a gamble. Thorn, infection. Bone splinter, snake bite. You saw a man lose his toe last season. It turned black. He didn't scream. He just limped until someone else ran faster. The insects are constant. Flies during the day. Mosquitoes at dusk. Fleas always. They live. In your clothes, your hair, your wounds. You scratch until you bleed, and then scratch again. Smoke helps if you can stand it. The right herbs might drive them off, or maybe they just mask your scent long enough to feel hope. But nothing keeps them away forever. They are in the marrow of your routine. A part of your diet. You've swallowed more than you'll ever admit. Even the kids have names for the ones that live behind the ears. Then there's the heat. Not tropical. Not gentle. Just the relentless push of the sun, high above and unblinking, turning your shelter into a sweat box and your water skin into soup. You sweat through layers of fur and grease until your skin salts over and your mouth feels like it's been filled with ash. Dehydration doesn't announce itself. It just waits for you to forget. You walk farther than you should. You stop sweating. You lie down for a moment. Someone else finds your body later, your lips cracked open like bad bark, your eyes full of the sky that did this to you. If the heat doesn't kill you, the cold tries. And it always tries hard. Cold is not a season. It's a personality, and a mean one. It finds your joints, settles in, and waits. Your breath becomes a visible curse. Your hands go stiff. You huddle close to the fire, but the fire is not loyal. It flickers, spits, dies. And then you are left with your clothes, patched fur, and faith. The elders say to rub snow on your skin if frostbite starts, to keep the blood moving. The elders also said that mammoths would never vanish. You don't trust advice, but you follow it anyway. Because you've seen what happens to fingers that freeze. They don't come back. Rain is rare, but when it comes like it hates you. It floods the camp. Turns the fire pit into a swamp. Soaks your food, your clothes, your bones. Everything becomes wet, then moldy, then useless. The smoke no longer rises, it clings. The air feels like breathing through fungus. Sleeping on wet hides gives you skin rot. You try to dry them by the fire, but they smoke too long and shrink. You sleep under half a deer and pray it doesn't shrink around your neck. Storms are worse. Not because of the rain or wind, those you can take, but because of what they bring. Thunder sends the children into fits. Lightning sets your shelter ablaze. Animals go mad. Even humans change. A storm means confusion. A storm means someone might panic and push you down while fleeing. You've seen it happen. Once during a lightning strike, a man ran into the woods and didn't come back. The elders said the spirits took him. The next morning, they found his body under a fallen branch. Neck snapped. Spirits don't need branches. People do that all on their own. Even when the weather is nice, it's not. The sun still burns. The wind still peels. The nights still freeze your tears before they fall. You live by the sky's permission. No sunscreen, no boots, no jacket. Just smoke, skin, and suffering. If you're lucky, you adapt. If you're not, you don't last. The weak. You do not speak in paragraphs. You don't need to. Language here is a tool, not a tapestry, a weapon sharpened on necessity and dulled by overuse. You have words, sure, but not many. The ones you do have are lean and brutal, stripped of decoration like your bones after the feast. You don't say, there's danger in the trees. You grunt once, then point. You don't ask, did you see that bear? You mimic its snort, widen your eyes, and crouch. It's not eloquent, but it gets the job done. Words are expensive. Too many. And you'll miss the snap of a twig, the whisper of leaves that means something is watching. Silence is safer. Silence is language, too. Children learn to speak not through lullabies, but through barked commands, laughter during fights, and the guttural warnings of parents trying to keep them from stepping into fires or wandering off cliffs. They learn that a high-pitched shriek means drop it. That a low grunt means danger. That silence, real, dense silence, is always followed by something terrible. You learn to read eyes before mouths, tone before meaning. A raised eyebrow can mean share the meat, or shut up and run, depending on who's looking at you and what's behind them. There is no grammar. No poetry. Not the kind you'd recognize, anyway. But there is rhythm. There is pacing. There is the cadence of a hunt plan whispered around a fire, each word hung between breaths, the gaps more important than the sounds. There's the rhythm of a mother cooing to a child, not with words, but with humming, the kind that keeps spirits away or convinces a baby that this world is slightly less cruel than it looks. Stories are told in fragments. You don't hear. A great beast once ruled these hills. You hear big claws. Fire from sky. Man dead, Don't go there. That's the myth. That's the warning. And that's enough. Gestures do most of the work. A flick of the wrist means come. Here. 2 fingers to the throat means I saw a cat. A tap to the chest followed by a downward motion means I'll go. These signs are known, passed down not with lessons but with repetition. You do them because your father did them, and he did them because someone once didn't, and now they are dead. You signal without thinking. While hunting, no one speaks. You mimic bird calls, imitate the rustle of prey, or tap the butt of your spear against a log to say ready. Every noise is chosen. Every silence is strategic. And yet, when night falls and the meat is gone and the danger has shrunk to its usual background roar, people do talk. Around the fire, the tongue loosens. Not because it's safe, but because it's time to remember. You listen as the old ones mumble through stories with missing pieces. Half-true tales about the moon being someone's tooth, or how the river once tried to eat a man and now demands a gift before crossing. You don't correct them. You don't question. You listen, because memory lives in sound. Not facts, but feelings. These are not histories. These are warnings disguised as nonsense. Jokes exist, too. They are not funny in the way you know funny. They are funny because someone farted during a funeral chant, or because a hunter once chased a goat off a cliff and followed it without thinking. People laugh like dogs bark, short, sharp, and with teeth. Laughter bonds. Laughter disarms. Laughter is what happens when you're still alive and just realized how absurd that is. Language is also power. Those who speak best, the ones who can direct others, who can calm, who can lie without being caught, they rise. Not through rank, because there is no formal rank, but through influence. You listen to them more. You move when they say move. You give them the better part of the meat, because their words hold the group together like twine around a bundle of sticks. Without language, you'd still survive. But you'd be alone. Cold. Unwarned. Forgotten. There is no writing. No symbols carved into stone. But you do leave messages. A pile of rocks to mark danger. A stick bent and tied to a tree to say food here. A splash of ochre on bark to mean this place matters. It's not a sentence. It's not a paragraph. But it's enough. Enough to say, we were here. We lived. We warned. And sometimes, when the stars are out and the fire burns low, someone will hum a melody with no words at all, passed down from no one you remember. It means nothing. It means everything. You hum it back, and for a moment, you are understood. You think fear belongs to the night. That darkness holds the worst of the world. But you're wrong. Night is just honest. It doesn't hide what it is. Midday is worse. Because daylight lies. It tricks you into thinking you're safe, that the trees are just trees, that the silence is gentle. It isn't. It's stalking you. Because the woods don't care what time it is. The things that kill you don't check the sun. Wolves hunt at dawn, sure, but if they are hungry enough, they'll come for you at noon with the sun high and birds still singing. You hear them first, a shuffle in the leaves, a break in the rhythm of the forest, a low growl that makes your spine remember its prey. You don't run. You freeze. Because running says, I am meat. Standing says, I might bite back. But you're not fooling anyone. You're just a hairless biped who barely knows how to sharpen your stick. Bears are worse. Because they don't growl. They don't sneak. They just appear. You blink, and there it is. A mass of fur and hunger and indifference. You don't matter to it. You're not even a threat, just a moving snack, inconvenient. But edible. If it charges, you die. You know this. You've seen it happen. A man tried to scare one off with fire. It swatted his skull open like a fruit. The fire went out. The bear didn't. And then there are the snakes. You almost never see them. They see you. You step too close and your foot goes numb. Then your calf. Then your chest. Sometimes you make it back to camp in time to swell, gasp, and die in front of your children. Sometimes you just lie down and don't get up. Someone finds your body later, face frozen mid-panic, leg already rotting. The others bury you shallow or feed you to the dogs. Depends on how much they liked you. But the worst aren't the animals. The worst are the ones who look like you. Other bands. Other people. The same hands, the same tools, the same desperation. You can't always tell if they are friendly. They smile, but so do hyenas. They offer gifts, roots, meat, a shell bracelet. Then they asked for fire. Then they asked for food. Then they ask if your shelters are always so poorly defended. The next morning, someone's dead and the bracelet's gone. You don't trust strangers. You barely trust kin. Every new face is a test, and you always assume the worst until they prove otherwise, and even then, you watch them sleep. Conflict doesn't look like war. It looks like an accident. A sharp word during trade. A wrong glance at someone's mate. A fight over water. A killing that starts with a shove and ends with a smashed nose and a cracked skull. Sometimes it ends with a torch thrown onto a shelter. You scream. You flee. You rebuild. Or you don't. Your band knows the signs: disturbed paths, broken branches, leftover ash where no one in your group built a fire. A missing trap. A stolen catch. Someone watched you. Someone followed. You feel it in your teeth. Your stomach knots. You move camp. You leave no trace. You sleep in shifts and sharpen your spears, even if they are dull reeds tied with worn twine. You hide your children. You bury your fires. You whisper again. You try not to think about the unknown. But it's there. In every shadow that moves wrong. In every noise that stops too suddenly. There are spirits, maybe. Or beasts no one has named yet. The elders speak of creatures with too many legs, eyes like fire, and voices that sound like wind but lie. You don't know if it's myth or memory. You just avoid that one patch of forest, and you never whistle near the cliffs. And then there's the fear that doesn't have a name. The fear that hits you when you're alone fetching water and the trees feel too close. When the wind shifts and your skin goes cold even though the sun is hot. The fear that makes you walk faster, breathe shallower, hum a nonsense song under your breath so the silence doesn't win. You don't know what you're afraid of. Only that it's watching. So you live in a world where fear is not an emotion. It is a constant. Like hunger. Like cold. Like breath. You carry it with you always. You learn to shape it, listen to it. Obey it. Because the day you don't, that's the day you don't come back. Pain is your constant companion, an invisible twin that follows you from birth until your final, graceless fall into the mud. You wake with it, sleep with it, carry it like a pouch on your hip. There is no word for healthy, only not currently dying. Sickness doesn't announce itself with a thermometer or a blood test. It arrives with a cough that doesn't stop, a cut that starts to smell like rot, or a fever that paints your dreams in fire and teeth. And when that happens, healing is not a process, it's a gamble. You don't have doctors. You have people who've lived long enough to make educated guesses. The old woman who lost 3 sons to infection. She knows which moss to pack into a wound. The man with the shattered leg that healed crooked. He knows how to set bones by feel and by memory. They are not trained. They are experienced. And half the time, they are wrong. There are no bandages. There are strips of hide soaked in urine, bark strips chewed soft, leaves wrapped tight. With sinew. You don't disinfect. You smoke the wound or smear it with boiled pine resin and hope the spirits like the smell. Infection is not an if, it's a when. A scrape becomes a scab, becomes a sore, becomes a pus-dripping hole in your leg that oozes until you pass out or get lucky. Someone might chant over you. Someone might chew herbs and spit them into your wound. Someone might hold your hand while you scream. If you're lucky. Fever is treated with water and prayer. You lie beneath a hide, sweating through it, dreaming of drowning in your own breath. They feed you hot broth and tell you stories to keep your spirit from slipping too far. Some recover. Some don't. The dead are rolled in hides and buried shallow or burned if the fever was too contagious. You don't mark graves. You remember them in stories, and only until those stories become inconvenient. Broken bones are set by pulling and pressing and yelling. A femur is realigned with the help of two people holding you down while a third yanks. Then it's bound to a straight branch with animal sinew and spit, and you're told not to move for weeks, even though your shelter leaks and the insects are learning your scent. You spend those days in a haze of pain and silence, hoping the bone fuses well and that the person who splintered you wasn't too drunk on fermented fruit pulp to aim properly. Toothaches are common, fatal, and slow. You chew bark, you chew bone, you chew air. Your teeth crack, wear down, rot. Sometimes someone yanks one out with a carved hook and a steady arm. More often you live with it until the infection climbs into your jaw, into your skull, and eats you from the inside. There is no solution. Just quiet groaning, less food, and finally, stillness. Women bleed and give birth in the same spot. The birthing mat is made of old furs and flattened reeds. There is no midwife, only women who've done it before and remember which way the baby is supposed to turn. Sometimes it comes out screaming. Sometimes it doesn't come out at all. A dead baby is removed and buried. A dead mother is mourned for a day, then replaced by someone who can still gather roots. There's crying. There's no ceremony. Children get sick fast. They die fast. You don't name them until they've survived 2 winters. It's not superstition. It's strategy. You don't want to get too attached. Some still do. You see it in the eyes of the mother holding a coughing bundle to her chest, whispering to it like it can bargain with the worms already gathering outside. Sometimes healing works. A man recovers from a wound. A woman survives childbirth. A fever breaks. A bone fuses right. And for a moment, everyone breathes easier. But it never lasts. Because death is not an event, it's the weather. It comes in waves, in gusts, in creeping damp. It's always waiting. You treat your wounds. You chew the bitter herbs. You let the old woman smear ash across your forehead. You do it not because you believe it works, but because it's the only thing to do. There is no drama in death. Only work. You dig a hole. You push the body in. You cover it with dirt. Sometimes you leave a shell or a stone. Sometimes not. The world doesn't stop. The wind keeps blowing. The chores don't pause. You get up the next morning and sharpen your spear. Because the hurt never ends. And neither does the need to survive it. The kill is never just meat. It is never just protein dragged in from the woods and carved into strips by hands too tired to pray. It is not just food, it is debt. You took a life, and now something unseen is watching, counting, remembering. You don't have religion in the way a priest would recognize, but you have rules, and the rules are older than language. They say that blood feeds more than the mouth. It feeds the forest. It feeds the dead. It feeds whatever waits in the dark, deciding whether you deserve another sunrise. So you don't just butcher. You perform. It begins the moment the animal dies. A deer, a boar, a bird with bones so light it shouldn't matter, but it does. You kneel beside the body and place your hand on its chest, still hot, still twitching. You whisper words that aren't really words. More like sounds from your grandmother's breath. You thank it. You curse it. You ask it not to haunt your children. Then the cutting starts. But even that is choreography. You make the first slice from neck to belly, clean and smooth, with a blade of flint or obsidian or anything sharp enough to open the truth. You do it in front of others, because this is not just survival, it's a lesson. The heart is removed. Still steaming. It's placed on a stone, or a flat piece of wood, or into the hand of the oldest one watching. They hold it high. Everyone watches it bleed out, slow, rhythmic, as if the blood carries something more than just salt and warmth. You don't bury it. You offer it. Sometimes to the fire. Sometimes to the sky. Sometimes you leave it in a tree so the spirits, whatever they are, can take their share. You believe this keeps you safe. You believe this keeps the animals coming. You believe this because the last time you didn't do it, the next hunt failed. And the time after that, someone died. The bones are not discarded. They are chosen. Some are cracked for marrow. Others are carved into tools. But a few, the long, straight ones, the skulls, the jaws, are saved. They become talismans. They are hung from the shelter's entrance, painted with ochre, tied with sinew, rattled during chants. Not because they are beautiful, but because they hold the echo of the kill. You carry one on your belt, a rabbit femur, scraped clean and wrapped in hide. You don't know why. You just know it feels wrong to leave it behind. The blood is sometimes smeared on the forehead of a child. Initiation, they say. A way to mark that they've seen death and now understand what feeds them. The child doesn't cry. They understand more than you give them credit for. Blood is the price of being alive. And the dead animal, though gone, has not disappeared. Its spirit is somewhere, floating just above the fire, deciding whether to forgive you. The old woman begins to chant. Her voice is cracked, dry, like bark in the wind. No one knows all the words, but everyone hums along. It's not for the ears. It's for the ancestors, the invisible ones whose names you only half remember but whose rules still govern your life. There are dancers. They aren't graceful. They are stomps, circles, mimicry. Someone wears the animal's hide, still wet. They snort and leap and howl. It's absurd, but no one laughs. Because it's serious. Because it's memory. Because once, someone did this and the hunt that followed brought back enough to survive winter. So you do it again. Just in case. Ash is smeared on cheeks. Feathers are tied into hair. Some eat a piece of the raw liver. A test, a bond, a way to bring the animal into yourself. You chew and swallow and feel nothing except cold iron on your tongue. And maybe that's the point. Sometimes, if the kill was large or strange, a bear, a snake, something with too many eyes, there's a different ritual. You burn part of it. Not to eat. To cleanse. You don't speak during that burn. You just watch. Let the smoke rise. Let the scent sink into your hair, your skin, your bones. Let whatever force you disturbed know that you're sorry. Or that you're not worth cursing. Either way, you don't forget. By the end, there's nothing left. The meat is drying. The bones are sorted. The fire is low. The blood is in the dirt. And you feel lighter, not just from hunger satisfied, but from having paid the price. The kill is over. But the ritual never ends. Because next time, the blade might be for you. And you'd hope someone remembers to thank the thing that took your life. You don't live in a house. You live in a compromise. A truce between nature and your need not to die in the open. Your shelter is not sturdy, not beautiful, not private. It is a dome of bent branches lashed with rawhide and draped in hides that still remember the animals they belong to. It smells like smoke, rot, and cold sweat. And it is the only thing standing between you and the endless teeth of the outside world. Building one takes days. First, you find the right saplings, young, flexible, and doomed. You bend them into a frame, arching them into ribs, forcing them into shape with leverage and curses. No nails. No screws. Just knots and tension and the quiet panic of knowing this has to work or you'll freeze. Then comes the covering, deer hides, stitched with bone needles, scraped soft but never soft enough. Bark slabs if you're lucky. Reeds if you're desperate. Everything leaks eventually. Rain gets in. Wind cuts through. Snow finds every gap. You spend more time fixing your shelter than living in it. But you fix it anyway because a broken roof is a coffin with chores. Inside, it's cramped. The floor is dirt. The bedding is more hides, layered in the hope that multiple layers of filth equal warmth. They don't. The smoke hole above is just that, a hole. Sometimes the smoke rises. Sometimes it sinks and suffocates you slowly. You've learned to sleep with one eye open and your nose half burned. There's a fire pit in the middle, ringed with stones that are never where you left them. The fire is everything. Light. Heat. Safety. The gods, if they exist, live in its coals. You feed it obsessively, scraping the last dry stick from the forest floor, chewing bark if you must, because if the fire goes out in winter, you don't wake up. There is no furniture. Just places to sit. A pile of furs where the old one's grown. A corner for tools. A space near the door where someone sleeps with their legs half out because they lost the argument about who gets the warm spot. Privacy is a joke. You live shoulder to shoulder, breath to breath. Arguments happen in whispers or shouts, depending on how close you are to the exit. Sex happens quietly, or it doesn't. Children are born here. People die here. Sometimes the same night. You clean the blood, or you don't. Either way, life goes on. It's not a home. It's a shelter. A place to endure weather, not escape it. In summer, it bakes. In spring, it leaks. In fall, the winds find ways in no matter how you patch the seams. Winter is worst. You hear it before you feel it, the groan of trees cracking. Under snow, the soft sigh of frost settling on your clothes. You huddle together like scavengers on a carcass. You wake up with ice in your hair. You try not to think about how many winters you have left. When the shelter gets too foul, when the rot, the lice, the stink of sickness becomes unbearable, you burn it. Not in rage. In ritual. A slow, smoldering goodbye. Then you move. You carry what you can. You leave behind the bones. The frame, the walls, the ash, all become someone else's problem. Or warning. Sometimes you build near others. Other families. Other shelters. A loose circle of shared suffering. You lash them together with paths, with fire pits, with stories. Told loud enough for everyone to hear but vague enough to keep your secrets. You borrow tools. You argue over space. You pretend you're a village. But you're not. You're just temporary neighbors waiting for the next disaster to scatter you like dry leaves. And yet, in the middle of all this squalor and smoke, you find comfort. Not comfort like a pillow. Comfort like not being dead. Like hearing someone cough beside you and knowing you're not alone. Like knowing that if a bear charges, at least it has options. You fall asleep listening to the fire crackle and the wind lie. You dream of better walls, warmer hides, a roof that doesn't sag. Then you wake up and fix the patch again. This is your home. Not because you love it, but because it's what stands between you and the howling void that wants you gone. A dome of hide and bark. A dying ember of control. A fragile, stitched-together miracle that hasn't fallen yet. You worry about wolves, about rival bands, about bears that break your bones before breakfast, but you die from things you can't even see. You die from inside out. From the tiny, wet wars raging beneath your skin, inside your gut, deep in the wound you swore was healing. The real killers don't roar. They itch. They crawl. They spread quietly like rumors and take without asking. Insects come first, always. They are everywhere, on your skin, in your hair, under your fingernails. Fleas bite. Lice suck. Mites burrow. Ticks latch and gorge, black pearls growing fat with your blood. You pluck them off, throw them in the fire, smear their guts on your thigh, but they come back. You can't kill them all. You just live with them, scratching, flaking, bleeding until your skin is less a barrier and more a suggestion. Children are born with lice and die with worms. It's not even sad. It's normal. Mosquitoes are worse. They bring things. Fevers that boil your brain, chills that shake your bones until your teeth chatter loose. One day you're gathering roots, the next you're hallucinating your dead sister whispering warnings into your ear. There's no name for malaria, for dengue, for the slow rot of your liver under a sky too beautiful to trust. There's just the heat, the sweat, the swelling. You lie under a hide, unable to drink, unable to move, while flies nest in your open sores. And if the fever doesn't kill you, the infection will. Food is never safe. You cook when you can, but you eat raw when you must. Meat half done because the fire died. Roots rinsed but not boiled. Water scooped from a stream where a deer died 2 days earlier. You don't have a filter. You have a stomach with secrets. Sometimes it handles it. Sometimes it doesn't. You know the signs: the stomach cramps, the diarrhea that doesn't stop, the weakness that comes like a thief and leaves you a skeleton in a puddle of your own failure. They call it the belly death. It's fast or slow. You scream or you don't. The end's the same. And then there's rut. Not the forest kind. The body kind. A small cut that festers. A blister that bursts and blackens. A foot that smells wrong. You ignore it, of course. What choice do you have? You still have to hunt, gather, fight, live. So you limp. You wrap it in moss. You pray to a spirit you half believe in. But the pus keeps coming. The skin splits. The bone shows. Someone cuts it open with a hot stone. You scream. Or bite through a stick. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the infection travels to your blood and turns your heart into soup. Worms are a common guest. In your stool. In your gut. In your muscles. You bloat without eating. You vomit strings. They twist through your intestines like sentient thread, and no matter how much you fast or chew bitter herbs, they return. Children waste away, eyes too big for skulls, bellies full of nothing but parasites. No one calls it a disease. They call it childhood. Even the dead betray you. Corpses don't rest. They fester. They leak. They attract things that breed in their mouths and crawl into yours when you sleep too close. You burn the bodies when you can. You bury them when you must. But not deep enough. Never deep enough. Rain uncovers skulls. Dogs dig up ribs. A foot turns up beside the fire pit and no one even screams anymore. Disease travels without legs. One cough from the wrong person and the whole camp sniffs blood within the week. You try to isolate them, but the damage is already done. Someone always shares a gourd or a blanket or a kiss. You watch your strongest hunter shrink into a wheezing shadow. You watch your mother sweat through her furs and forget your name. You give them herbs. You sing. You rub ash into their feet. You bury them. You don't win this war. You endure it. You walk with the itch. You swallow around the fever. You sleep beside someone whose breath rattles like a dying drum. You accept that sometimes the thing that kills you is not bigger, stronger, faster, but smaller, quieter, patient. It waits inside the water, the wound, the touch. You don't know what it is. You just know it always comes. There is no throne. No crown. No carved staff pulsing with ancestral power. The only authority here is age and the kind of memory that bleeds. The council isn't a council. It's just who's left standing when decisions have to be made. You sit in a half circle of sun-bleached skulls and quiet contempt. Elders lean on knees worn soft by decades of squatting over bad meat and worse arguments. The fire sputters. The children stay quiet. The hunters stand at the edge, arms crossed, waiting for someone else to be blamed. And still, the talk begins not because anyone wants it to, but because someone must. A decision must be made. Maybe the meat is rotting. Maybe the stream is poisoned. Maybe someone stole a fish or a woman. Or both. You all know what happened. What matters is who says it first and how. The old man with the broken nose clears his throat like he's coughing up ghosts. He says the band must move before the moon turns full. The others grunt. Not yes. Not no. Just acknowledgement. The wordless weight of adult agreement. The argument begins in silence, shaped with glances and eyebrow lifts, fingers tapping bone tools in slow rhythm. Then the speaking starts. Careful. Clipped. No long speeches. This isn't a court. This is a battlefield made of throat sounds. There is no chief. Just loud people who haven't died yet. You earn your voice by surviving, spearing a boar, giving birth alone, pulling someone out of a river with your own teeth. No one votes. No one counts hands. Authority is how long people look at you when you speak, how many still repeat your name after a failed hunt, how few laugh when you fall. Some call it respect. Some call it fear. It's usually both. The loudest woman spits into the dirt and says the spirits are angry. The youngest man says spirits don't matter if your feet are frostbitten. Someone snorts. Someone throws a pebble. The tension grows like a boil. Sometimes there's a fight. Not with blades. With words so sharp they flay pride. With accusations dragged from 5 winters ago. You remember when you left my brother behind. You remember who ate first during the long hunger. You remember who slept with whose mate when the river flooded. You remember because memory is armor and forgetting is a luxury for the full-bellied. A mother stands and cries. A hunter mutters that she cries too much. She throws a rock. It hits him. He laughs. And that's how consensus is born, not from logic, but from exhaustion. The issue gets resolved. Sort of. You move camps. Or don't. You punish someone. Or pretend to. The accused is told to hunt alone for 3 days, a death sentence softened by hope. If they return, they are forgiven. If they don't, the problem solved itself. Everyone nods like justice was done. No one mentions the smell of fear under all that smoke. But not all counsels are arguments. Some are just planning. When to move. Where to hunt. Who guards the food. Who teaches the young ones how not to die stupidly. These talks are slow, steady, and filled with the kind of wisdom that looks like boredom. Someone draws a map in the dirt with a stick. Someone else adds a mark where a cousin vanished last spring. You don't interrupt. You listen. Because even if their lungs rattle and their teeth are gone, they've seen more than you. They remember the fire that jumped trees. The illness that started with a sneeze. The night the sky sang and a woman birthed twins who never blinked. Sometimes the council turns to ritual. Someone died. Or is dying. Or is about to. You discuss what the spirits want, or what they said in last night's dreams. Someone always dreams. No one questions that. It's part of the system. Dreams are as valid as footprints. More so. You decide who sings. Who digs. Who watches the sky for signs. It's not democracy. It's duty assigned by vibe. Disputes don't vanish after the meeting. They just shrink into the corners, waiting to be reborn in next week's argument about fish traps, but they stay small, contained. Because survival is a shared delusion, and no one lives long alone. You leave the council tired, hungry, unsettled. But with a direction. That's enough. You return to your tasks. Sharpen the spears. Feed the fire. Watch the sky. You might not agree with the decision, but you'll follow it. Because tomorrow might kill you, and at least today. Puberty arrives like a wound that never closes, like a fever that doesn't kill but changes everything. One day you're just a child with dirty knees and a blunt stick, the next, you bleed or swell or stink in new ways, and suddenly you're useful. Or dangerous or both. There is no privacy. The first blood comes and the women notice. They don't celebrate. They instruct. They grab you by the wrist, smear red ochre on your thighs, and say, "Don't shame your mother." For boys, it's less ritual, more ridicule. Your voice cracks, your bones stretch, and someone throws a dead mouse at you and calls you almost man. It means you're ready to hurt or be hurt. You don't get a moment alone to figure it out. You just start waking up with a pulse between your legs and a whole new reason to get killed. There are no dating apps. Pairing is proximity and pressure. You spend your whole life next to these people, watching them skin rabbits, carry water, argue with their mothers, and then one day, someone glances a second too long and that's it. You're paired. Sometimes it's mutual. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes someone just drags you behind a tree and grunts an offer. If you grunt back, you're mates. If not, they might ask again tomorrow. Or never. Consent exists, but it's built on understanding, not words. You can say no. But no is a risk. No gets you fewer allies. No gets you alone. Sex is not sacred. It's survival. It's politics. It's a way to bind families, trade favor, keep peace between hot-headed cousins. It's also messy, awkward, rushed. There are no beds. No privacy. Just a patch of moss that doesn't have ants on it yet. You learn quickly. Or you pretend to. You make mistakes. You don't talk about them. You move on. The older ones laugh. Then they stop laughing when the girl misses her moon blood and starts throwing up every morning. Pregnancy is obvious. There's no mystery. The women know. The men guess. The elders give you a look like, well, now you've done it. There are no weddings. No vows. No promises. Pairings happen because you hunt well, or because her father wants a strong son-in-law, or because your last mate died and no one else was free. But there are rules. You don't pair with your sister. You don't steal from another's shelter. If you do, there's a fight. If it gets bad enough, someone bleeds. If it gets worse, someone disappears into the woods and doesn't return. But mostly, it stays quiet. Affairs happen. Jealousy festers. Gossip circulates like a disease, passed from ear to ear by women scraping hides or men sharpening spears. Children watch it all. They see who touches whom. Who gets the warm side of the fire. Who gets food first. And they learn. Not from lectures, but from patterns. They mimic courtship before they understand it. A boy gives a girl a beetle he caught. She throws it at his head. Everyone laughs. It's practice. It's ritual. It's their future in miniature. Power moves through sex like heat through bone. Those who pair well rise. A strong woman with 3 sons is untouchable. A man with a fertile mate gets listened to. A single adult is suspicious, either cursed, dangerous, or too weak to keep a partner. And power shifts constantly. A miscarriage. A bad hunt. A lover's betrayal. It all reshuffles the invisible rankings that keep the camp spinning without collapsing. Sometimes, people pair for love. Or something like it. A kind of comfort found in shared failure. In mutual exhaustion. In the knowledge that if you're going to freeze to death, it's better to do it next to someone who snores in a familiar way. Sex isn't hidden. It happens when it happens. Behind a bush. Near the fire. In the middle of a sentence. Children. Don't flinch. Elders don't scold. It's life, raw and repetitive. What's private is not the act, it's the bond. The way someone looks at someone else after. The way food is shared differently. The way silence stretches longer between 2 people who've stopped pretending they don't need each other. And sometimes a pairing ends. Not with words. With absence. She doesn't return from the river. He builds his fire farther away. Their shared shelter becomes someone else's. No one asks questions. Everyone already knows. Tomorrow, someone else will grunt. Someone else will say yes. And the cycle, like the hunger, begins again. Evening doesn't bring peace. It brings pressure. The shadows get longer, and so does the list of things you haven't done. The traps haven't been checked. The bark you promised to peel is still clinging to its tree like it wants to die there. The firewood pile is a joke, 3 sticks and a prayer, and someone's already muttering about how your laziness will freeze the children. You don't argue. There's no time. The sun is a melting coin sliding behind the tree line, and every minute it drops means your chances shrink. So you go. Alone or in pairs. Quiet, quick, always watching. This is recon, but no one calls it that. No one says, let's sweep the perimeter. You just glance at the woods, grab a stick or a sharpened bone, and vanish. The evening recon. is part instinct, part insurance. Not for war, but for warning. Tracks are easier to see in low light. Scat glistens. Broken branches glimmer with the last gold of sun. You read the forest like a story scratched into dirt. That's deer. That's something bigger. That's human. Old. Fresh. Wrong. If it's fresh and wrong, you turn around. If it's old and edible, you follow. You check the snares you set that morning, bent branches, hidden loops, pits covered with moss and hope. Sometimes there's a rabbit. Sometimes there's nothing but a sprung trap and a mess of feathers. Sometimes you find bones something got. There first. You don't scream. You reset the trap, spit into the dirt, and move on. You forage as you go. Not methodically. Desperately. You know where the late berries hide, clinging to vines like secrets. You know which roots can be yanked quick without digging too deep. Mushrooms, maybe, if you're lucky and bold and haven't forgotten which color means food and which color means seizures. You once watched a boy die foaming because he confused the two. His mouth turned blue. His mother ate the same and lived. No one understands it. You take the risk anyway. You carry what you can. In baskets. In hides. In your shirt if you have to. But you don't stay out too long. Because twilight is a shifting thing, beautiful and treacherous. 1 minute you can see the trail. The next, the trail is just darkness pretending to be ground. You quicken your pace. Your ears sharpen. You listen for what isn't there, the birds gone quiet, the insects holding their breath. That's the real sign. Not the growl, but the hush that comes before. Sometimes, recon means finding what someone else dropped. A tool. A bone blade. A smear of blood. Once you found a whole body, half buried, jaw snapped, eyes packed. No one claimed it. You burned it and moved the camp the next morning. No one talks about that place anymore. But everyone remembers. When you return, the sky is bruised with dusk and the fire glows like a threat you hope stays warm. The camp smells of smoke and meat if you're lucky. If not, it smells like wet bark and old sweat. You drop your bundle. Someone grunts approval. Someone else grabs a mushroom and sniffs it like it might hiss. You tell them it's safe. You hope you're right. Evening tasks begin. You stack the wood. You feed the fire. You share what you found. Or you lie and keep a piece for yourself. Everyone does it. It's part of the system. Trust but hoard. Smile but count. The elders mutter about the old ways when people were honest and generous. But you remember last winter. You remember who shared the last marrow bone and how. They got strangely strong while everyone else got strangely thin. The children ask what you saw. You lie. You say you saw a fox. You say you saw nothing. You don't tell them about the eyes that blinked from the brambles, too far apart to be anything friendly. You don't tell them about the track that looked like a man's but had claws instead of toes. You don't tell them because fear spreads faster than fire, and tonight, everyone just needs to believe they'll sleep without screaming. You sit by the fire. You chew. You nod. You feel the ache in your legs and the sting in your fingers and the weight in your chest that might be satisfaction or just another unspoken sickness. The sun is gone. The forest is a wall now. And behind that wall, the world sharpens its knives. You're safe. For now. But you know the night has questions and tomorrow will demand answers you're not ready to give. Nightfall is when the world starts lying louder. The wind shifts. The fire cracks strange. You don't trust your eyes, and you definitely don't trust the dark. That's when the stories start. Not for entertainment. For survival. You sit in the dirt ring around the fire like it's a barrier against something older than teeth. The old woman clears her throat. That sound is your signal. You shut up. You listen. She speaks slow, each word like a stone dropped into a river. Her eyes go glassy, like she's looking past the fire into somewhere none of you want to follow. She says once, before names, the trees walked and the sky was closer and men could hear the bones of the earth. She says we angered something. Or forgot something. Or ate something we weren't meant to. The details change. The fear does not. Everyone has a story. You've heard them all 100 times, but you listen again. Not because they are fun. Because they remind you. Of rules. Of warnings. Of what you do if the owl cries 3 times at dusk. Of why the river takes a child every spring and why no one fetches them back. Myths aren't escapism. They are manuals. Half-truths in animal skins. If you forget them, you die. If you mock them, someone else dies. You remember that boy. He laughed during a spirit chant. A tree fell on his hut that night. No one moved the trunk. The roots still point to the sky. Like ribs. You have no gods with names and robes. You have shapes. Things that move wrong. Lights that aren't fire. Sounds that don't match mouths. You believe in the old things. The cold things. The things that live in the caves you don't map. There's no priest. There's just the one who dreams loudest. Whoever wakes up sweating and screaming first gets to say what the spirits want. And everyone listens because ignoring a dream means inviting it to come true. Rituals aren't performed. They erupt. Someone breaks their leg. You smear ash on their forehead and leave a tooth in the tree. Someone births twins. You paint their names in blood on the cave wall and burn a rat just in case. You're not sure what half of it means, but meaning is a luxury. Repetition is safer. The rituals are ugly, crude, improvised. But they work. Or you pretend they do. Because pretending is better than helplessness, you chant not because it sounds good, but because it fills the silence. Silence is when the things beyond the fire listen. The chants are guttural, uneven, more breathing than language. Some are words from ancestors. Others are sounds that came in dreams. You don't question them. You chant until your throat dries. Until your hands stop shaking, until the baby stops crying. That's how you know it's over. For now. There are sacred objects. A cracked tooth. A twisted bone. A stone with a hole through it that only the old man can touch. These are passed around like fire. Carefully. Reverently. You don't know. Who made them? Maybe no one did. Maybe they just appeared. You believe they protect you. You believe they hurt you if disrespected. Once, a woman wore the tooth necklace while bleeding. The elders gasped. That night her hut caught fire. Coincidence doesn't exist. Not here. Children are taught early. Don't whistle at night. Don't step over a body. Don't sleep facing the east unless you're ready to see someone you buried. These aren't rules. They are facts. Like gravity, but meaner. You watch your child grow up believing the woods are alive, that every tree has a name, that the wind is someone's breath. You don't correct them. You nod. Because deep down, you think they're right. Faith isn't comfort. It's containment. It's the rope you tie around the chaos, the lid you slap on the boiling pot of the unknown. You believe because not believing is how people vanish. You believe because sometimes you don't, and those are the nights the fire dies for no reason. And the dogs whimper and something scratches the hide wall just once before fading back into the trees. The myths are not metaphors. They are armor. They are how you look into the abyss and explain why it hasn't yet swallowed you whole. You don't need heaven. You need warnings. You need rules wrapped in bone and smoke and shadow. So you sit. You chant. You remember. And somewhere in the woods, something ancient listens and, for now, lets you live. Night doesn't fall, it seeps. It leaks in from the edges of the world like rot, turning the trees into towering shadows and the sky into a ceiling too heavy to name. The fire is your only sun now, and even that's a lie. It sputters, it dims, it eats your fuel like a starving God. And someone has to stay awake to keep feeding it. That someone is you. Because it's your shift. Because the others drew stones and yours was the lightest. Or because you're young and the old ones are too brittle and the strong ones are too tired, and the children, well, they're already asleep, buried under furs like corpses trying to stay warm. So you squat by the coals with your weapon across your knees and your ears pried open by fear. It's not that you expect anything to happen. It's that you know it might. And that might is a blade pressed against the soft part of your neck every second until dawn. The fire's crackle is your heartbeat now. It's not there for light. It's not even there for heat. It's there to make the beasts believe you're dangerous. And if they don't believe it, you'll find out. You throw a stick on. Sparks leap like panicked fleas. The smoke stings your eyes, coats your teeth, makes your clothes stink so bad even the lice seem offended. You poke the embers. You check the shadows. You hear something, a footstep. A breath. A branch cracking under the weight of something. That didn't get enough to eat today. Your hand tightens on your club. Or maybe it's a stone. Or maybe it's just your own fear pretending to be wood. The rules are simple: don't sleep. Don't leave the fire. Don't scream unless you mean it. You're supposed to watch, not wonder. You're supposed to listen, not invent ghosts. But your mind starts to betray you by the second hour. Every flicker becomes a face. Every hiss of wind becomes a whisper. You imagine voices calling your name, softly, sweetly, like someone who wants to wear your skin like a coat. You rub your eyes. You pace. You hum. Anything to keep yourself tethered to this reality, where you are a living bodyguarding sleeping ones and not a dream walking toward something sharp. Sometimes the second watch doesn't wake. You prod them. They grunt. They roll over. You prod them again. They say, just a little more. You consider letting them sleep. Then you remember the last time someone did that, and how the fire went out and the goats were gone and the oldest woman screamed until her lungs collapsed. So you kick them, hard, and when they curse you, you don't apologize. They mutter. They rise. They take your place by the fire and glare like you stole their mother's ashes. You walk to your bedding, but you don't sleep. Not yet. Your body may lie down, but your ears are still on duty. Being on night watch doesn't make you a hero. No one thanks you. No one remembers. If you did your job, nothing happened. If something did happen, you failed. The best you can hope for is uneventful invisibility. You stare into the dark and the dark stares back and nothing moves, and still you win nothing but another chance to do it again tomorrow. Or tonight, if someone else twists an ankle or eats the wrong mushroom. You think about the stories. The ones told around the fire about spirits and beasts and ancestors who still walk, testing the living. You wonder if they are out there now, just beyond the light. Watching you. Judging your posture. Measuring your breath. You spit into the fire and hope that counts as an offering. The wind shifts. You smell something. Not animal. Not smoke. Something metallic. Blood. You stand. You listen. You grip your club so tight your hand forgets what relaxed feels like. But nothing happens. Not yet. The sun comes late. It drags itself into the sky like a wounded animal, slow and limping, grey. Before gold. When it arrives, you breathe. Not relief. Just less fear. The world is still dangerous. But it's visible again. You wake the others. You tell them the night was quiet. You don't mention the sounds. The shapes. The moment you thought you saw. Your dead brother standing behind the tree line, smiling with no teeth. The day begins. And you are just another tired body blending into the tribe. No reward. No glory. Just the knowledge that everyone else is alive. And that tonight, it might be your turn again. Night does not promise peace. It promises exposure. You lie in the dirt beside others, shoulder to shoulder like logs in a fire that no longer burns. The wind slips through every seam of the shelter and licks the sweat off your skin until it crusts into salt. You try to sleep, but someone is coughing. A dry, ragged cough that doesn't stop. It started 2 nights ago. Just a tickle, a clearing of the throat. Now it sounds like his lungs are turning inside out. You try to ignore it, but your body knows. It recognizes sickness the way a mouse smells a hawk. You inch away, just a little, pretending to shift for warmth. He doesn't notice. He's too busy trying not to drown on dry land. Illness doesn't ask permission. It enters through breath, through wounds, through water that looked clean. One moment you're strong. The next, you're fevered and leaking from both ends, begging a God you don't believe in to make it quick. And when it hits at night, it's worse. Because the dark makes it endless. No herbs, no poultices, no old woman with bone charms and half-remembered chants. Just the pain. The breath that won't come. The stomach that twists like rope. The cold that makes your skin burn. You try to remember what you ate. Who you touched. Who you slept beside. The math of death plays out in your head, and none of the numbers work in your favor. Someone else moans. Low. Not loud enough to wake the whole camp. Just enough for those closest to freeze. It's the child, the one with the bloated belly and sunken cheeks. Her mother hums to her. A sad, rhythmic thing that's meant to soothe. But everyone knows. The hum is a goodbye with breath still attached. No one says it. But they all think it. They count the coughs. They measure the silence between them. They hope it stretches. It doesn't. The healer is awake. She moves through the shelter like smoke, slow, crooked, half-shadow. She checks the sick. She sniffs their sweat. She pinches their fingers. She mutters to herself. She ties a bone charm to the girl's wrist and smears crushed roots on her chest. It smells like rot and dirt. She says it helps draw the sickness out. You've seen her say that before. To the boy who died shitting blood. To the man who screamed so loud they gagged him with fur. She says it every time. And maybe it helps. Or maybe it just gives everyone something to believe while the body loses the fight. No one cries yet. Crying is expensive. It wakes others. It attracts attention. It uses water you might not replace. You grieve in silence. In clenched jaws. In hands pressed to your face so the sob doesn't escape. You've buried too many to perform it every time. The dead deserve more than weeping. They deserve warmth and food and names remembered longer than the fever that killed them. You can't give them that. So you stay quiet. You wait. You listen. Sometimes the dying speak. Not words. Not really. They mutter nonsense. They call for people who've already gone. They gasp and stare like they see something you don't. You believe them. You have to. You believe they see the spirits. You believe they are being judged. Not because you're superstitious, but because it's unbearable to think they are just dying alone in the dark for no reason at all. And then it happens. A sharp breath. A rattle. A silence too complete. The mother's hum stops. The healer looks down, then away. No words. Just a slow covering of the face with hide. Just the quiet sound of breath escaping people who were holding it in. You don't speak. No one does. Death deserves silence because that's what it leaves behind. You don't move the body yet. It's still warm. Still here. You wait until the sun shows itself. Then you dig. Shallow, maybe. The ground is hard. The tools are dull. But you dig. You place the body in the dirt like a seed you hope doesn't grow. You place a charm beside it. You cover it with earth and silence and memory. And then you move on. Because you must. Because there is no room for prolonged mourning. Because someone still needs water. Still needs food. Still needs the fire kept alive. Grief becomes another weight. You carry it in your chest, in your spine, in the way you look at the others and wonder who's next. The shelter creaks. The fire flickers. The coughing doesn't stop. And the night continues. Watching. Waiting. Patient as sickness. Quiet as death. The day doesn't end. It just folds into the next like a wound that never scabs. You lie on your side in the stink of animal hide and ash, not sleeping, not dreaming, just existing in the thin layer between exhaustion and redness. The night is still deep, but the work has already begun. Someone sharpens a flint blade, the soft scrape like a whisper from a cruel god. Someone else shifts in the dark, checking traps in their mind, checking that their children are still warm. Checking that the fire hasn't died. You don't check the fire. You can feel it in your bones, whether it's still alive or whether it's failed you like everything else eventually does. Preparation is not a task. It's a reflex. You reach for your tools before you think. Your hands find the blade you shaped 3 moons ago. The edge is dull. You sharpen it anyway, knowing it might snap tomorrow in the ribs of something hungrier than you. You touch the sling you've braided from sinew. Still tight. Still deadly if your aim holds. You adjust the stones in your pouch, feeling there. Wait like a question, will this one save you, or will it bounce off something's skull and piss it off? Others stir. No one speaks. Speaking breaks the spell, reminds everyone how fragile it all is. You wrap your food in hide if there's food to wrap. Dried meat. Root mash. Crushed seeds that taste like dirt and regret. You pack like you're not coming back. Because maybe you're not. Maybe today's hunt goes south. Maybe you step wrong and snap something vital. Maybe you get seen before you see. So you prepare your body too. You stretch your legs, slow and careful, not out of vanity but out of grim necessity. A cramped thigh can get you killed. The shelter groans as bodies shift. You see outlines, not faces. Shadows gathering their lives in handfuls. Someone mutters a prayer, not to a god, but to the woods. To the sun, if it comes back. To whatever spirit lives in the dirt and hasn't taken their child yet. It's not hopeful. It's habitual. Hope is a luxury. Habit is what gets you fed. You strap on your tools. Blade. Club. Sling. The others do the same. No armor. No metal. Just hide and nerve. You tuck a lucky charm into your belt, a carved bone, a tooth from a brother who didn't make it. You don't believe it works. You carry it anyway. The fire is fed. A small one. Enough to cook, not to waste. Someone boils water in a cracked pot balanced on stones. It smells faintly of fungus and fish skin. You drink it like it's sacred. Not for the taste. For the warmth. For the way it reminds you you're still here, still a thing that needs feeding. The elders chew roots. The children whimper. You ignore it. Everyone ignores it. Pain isn't interesting. It's just common. Then comes the final check. Tools. Ready. Food. Packed. Shelter. Patched. Fire. Guarded. You leave weapons within reach. Even while walking away from camp. You never assume safety. You never sleep without something sharp nearby. You don't get second chances. Not out here. There's no goodbye. You just leave. Fade into the trees like ghosts who haven't figured out they are dead yet. You step quiet. You listen for everything. You smell the air like a predator. Because you are one. Or you pretend to be. But the truth is, you prey more often than not. And today might be the day something faster remembers that. This is the cycle. You sharpen, pack, stretch, eat, walk. You forage. You hunt. You carry. You return. Or you don't. And when the sun drops again, you'll do it all over if you're lucky. If nothing bleeds too much. If the fever waits another day. If the gods of accident and chance decide to spare you one more round. You don't call it a cycle. You don't call it anything. You just live it. Over and over. Until your teeth wear flat and your joints refuse to run. Until your body becomes another thing to bury, another warning to the living, another story the children won't believe until it's their turn. You prepare not for hope. You prepare because you must. Because that's what living means now. Not thriving. Not dreaming. Just staying ready. Just making it to the next sunrise. Again. And again. And again.